Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I have made it my goal for 2025 to play through every North American N64 game. Yes, even the bad ones. N64 is my favorite system and I want to experience everything it has to offer, so I'm going to make a video on every single one. There's 296 games in total, so I think this is going to probably go beyond 2025, but we won't stop till we beat them all. Now, it was hard deciding what game to play first, but I eventually decided on Paper Mario 64. It's one of my favorite games on the system, so I thought it'd be a great way to start. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. The game starts off by Mario and Luigi receiving a letter. The letter is from Princess Peach saying she's throwing a party and it would be an honor if they came. As cool as guys as they are, they decided to go to Peach's party. Once there, you get control of Mario and can talk to some of the guests if you want, but I just went up to see Peach because, you know, her and Mario are pretty close. She tells Mario no one will bother us up here and that they should relax and chat, just the two of them. Was that 90s for Netflix and chill? I'm not sure if I'm okay with where this is going. But it's okay because not long after, Bowser's castle emerges from underneath Princess Peach's castle. How did no one know that was there? After it emerges from the ground, it sends you into space, Mario Galaxy style. It actually looks pretty cool. But while Mario and Peach are trying to figure out what happened, Bowser shows up. This is where you enter your first battle in the game. Since it's your first, it's pretty simple, and all Mario can really do is attack. And at this point, it's a complete turn-based battle. Mario attacks, Bowser attacks, that's about it. But luckily the battle system gets way more interesting a bit later. And just when you think you're winning against Bowser, he pulls out the Star Rod. He uses the Star Rod to become invulnerable pretty much to all of Mario's attacks, leaving you helpless. And after toying with you a bit, he defeats you in battle. And I really like how he uses a Star Rod to cast Undaga and blow you out of the castle. It's a nice little touch. But as Mario is falling down below, we get the cool logo of the game to pop up, as well as beating the intro. Now we begin the prologue. After falling out of the castle, Mario lands in a forest next to Goomba Village and is found by one of the Goombas unconscious. While resting, one of the Star Spirits tells Mario to come to Shooting Star Summit. Afterwards, he disappears and Mario wakes up. And now this is where we finally get control of Mario and get to explore a little bit. We can finally take in the incredible art style of this game. Everything is made out of paper, which makes sense since the game is called Paper Mario, but seeing Goomba Village with the houses and trees, it almost feels like a diorama. I just love it. And after a bit of exploring, we decide to head to Shooting Star Summit, but our path is blocked by a yellow cube that Kammy Koopa placed. So we have to find a hammer to get past. One of the Goombas tells us that Goompaw should have a hammer, so we go visit him on his veranda. Unfortunately for us, it has fallen off his house, so Mario falls down below. Something tells me Goompaw is a little too old to be doing construction. Once we reach the ground, we find Goompaw on the destroyed veranda. He tells us to look around for a hammer that he lost somewhere in the area. Here we get to search through the grass and we find some useful stuff like mushrooms and coins, as well as our first star piece, which will be very useful later. After we find the hammer and are ready to leave the area, we're introduced to Junior Troopa, or Master Junior Troopa as he calls himself. He's a reoccurring character you'll see in nearly every chapter, and honestly one of my favorites. Here you get into a fight with him because he claims you have trespassed in his territory, but come on, this guy is barely hatched, he doesn't own this area. Overall though, he is a pretty easy fight, and once defeated you can make your way back to Goomba Village where you receive your first badge, which gives Mario abilities you can equip with BP as well as your first partner, Goombario. You get quite a few partners in this game, and they each have their own useful abilities. Goombario's ability is to tell you about the enemies you are fighting, which can come in handy, but for the most of the time, it feels like a waste of a turn. Now with your hammer in hand though, you can finally destroy the block in your path and make your way to Shooting Star Summit. On your way there, you run into a blue and red Goomba who are talking smack and won't let you pass, so you gotta teach them a lesson. They're super easy to beat, especially with your newly acquired badge, and once defeated they run back to their Goomba King, the Goom Boss, who you fight pretty much right after. Again, he isn't that difficult, especially if you hit the tree next to him. This causes the sticker balls to fall out and deal 3 damage to everybody, which is enough to take out the red and blue Goombas in one hit. Do this as well as a few hits and the Goom Boss will be defeated. Even though this fight is easy, it's still fun. This is also where you get your first level up, and level ups don't increase all your stats like most games with level up systems. In this game you choose between HP, FP, and BP to give a bonus to. So you kind of build Mario how you want. You want a lot of badges? Go BP. You want to be a tank? Go HP. It is simple, but it definitely works for this game. But with the Goom Boss being defeated, you can finally make your way to Toad Town and up to Shooting Star Summit. Overall, it's a really good prologue that gives you a good idea of what the rest of the game looks like. Once you get to Shooting Star Summit, you make your way to the top, and let me just say, everything about this place is so cool, from the music to the environment, and I really like the shooting stars that fall in the background. This place just feels magical. But once you make it to the top, you'll meet the 7 Star Spirits. Each of them have been captured and scattered across the Mushroom Kingdom, and it is your goal to free them so they can give you the power to beat Bowser. Because with Bowser having the Star Rod, he can grant whatever wishes he wants. After leaving Shooting Star Summit, you get to see what's happening with Princess Peach. She's currently being locked up in a room by Bowser, and this is where you're introduced to the little star Twink. He tells Peach he can grant her wish, so she wishes to take the star rod from Bowser, except he can't do that because he isn't strong enough. So then she wishes to get her out of here, and he can't do that either. Honestly, he isn't much help. But after a while, we find something Twink can do. Peach asks him to go find Mario, so he sets out and searches for him. He eventually finds Mario and gives you the lucky pendant, which teaches you the action command. This makes the battle system so much better by using actions to determine how much damage you do, as well as letting you block incoming attacks if you time it right. You get into a fight with Kammy Koopa right afterwards, which gives you a chance to try out the new action command. After this, you get a bit of freedom before setting out to find the first Star Spirit. The number one thing you'll want to do is visit the house beneath the Shooting Star Summit. On the first floor, there's a fortune teller, but he isn't important. We want to talk to the person upstairs who trades star pieces for badges. You can get some pretty good badges here, which makes collecting star pieces pretty important. There are a few more things you can do as well before starting Chapter 1, like exploring Toad Town, checking out the shops, or fighting some battles in the dojo, though you can always do this later and it's not too important at the moment. To start Chapter 1, you have to talk to Merlin, who will help you track down the first Star Spirit. He tells you to go to the east of Toad Town to Koopa Fortress, but your path is blocked by dark toads who won't let you pass. Come to find out, they're the Koopa Squad, or as I like to call them, off-brand Ninja Turtles. Once Merlin has revealed their identity, they run back to Koopa Fortress, thus starting Chapter 1. Chapter 1 consists of two main sections, Koopa Village and Koopa Bros Fortress. But before we can get to the fortress, we have to go to Koopa Village to recruit our next partner, Kooper. When we arrive at Koopa Village, it's been overrun by fuzzies, and the fuzzies are kind of harassing the Koopas. We have to chase one quite a while to get Kooper's shell back, and when we reach him, he has us play a little minigame where he shuffles himself with the others in the trees. It's a pretty easy minigame, and once you beat it, you get Kooper's shell back. And then Kooper joins the party. His ability allows you to shoot his shell in front of you, hitting switches, or collecting unreachable items. It's actually pretty useful. But these fuzzies don't know when to quit, so right after you get into a fight with them, which is a good opportunity for you to try out Kooper in battle. With Kooper in your party, you're ready to head to Koopa Fortress, or you can explore Koopa Village, but there ain't much there except for Chuck Quizmo, who quizzes you. If you want a star piece for an easy question, I'd recommend taking his quiz. On your way to Koopa Bros Fortress, you'll get a chance to fight more enemies, and the cool thing is watching the environment change as you get closer to the fortress. You got the castle walls in the background, and it's super cool. And once you arrive at the fortress, you'll be up against new enemies as well as puzzles. The new enemies are bombs, which are rather annoying, as well as bullet bills near the end of the fortress. For the most part, this area is pretty easy to get through and pretty straightforward. And eventually, you'll meet your next ally, Bombette, locked in a prison. She also has a useful ability which blows up cracks in the walls. I just want to know how she can explode and then be perfectly fine. I mean, I wish I could do that. I do find it strange though that we get two allies so close together. I feel like I barely used Kooper before getting Bombette. I just wish they were spread out a bit more to give each their time to shine. But with all your partners collected, it's time to make it to the top of the fortress and face off with the Koopa Bros. Once you reach the top, the Koopa Bros will shoot bullet bills at you. You can either avoid or fight them, it doesn't really matter. But you do have to take them out once you get to the end. With them defeated, you can now go to the last room and face off against the Koopa Bros. The fight itself is pretty fun, and it starts off with the Koopa Bros in a Bowser suit. It's after that the real fight begins. The Koopa Bros will stand on top of each other, and it's your job to knock them over. Now, these guys can do a lot of damage depending how many bros are stacked. And if all four are stacked, they'll do a lot of damage, so you do want to be careful here. Once you defeat them, you get your first Star Spirit, and you're ready to head back to Toad Town. With the Star Spirit also comes Star Power. The first Star Power you get is Refresh, which recovers your HP and FP by 5. It's a decent power, but you get much better ones later. But before you can make your way back to Toad Town, you go back to Peach, who is trying to escape her room. She is kind of successful and ends up in Bowser's room. The funny thing about this is Bowser left his diary out, so Peach decides to read it. And in the diary, it tells us where the next star is. According to his diary, it's in Dry Ruins. Unfortunately, we get caught and sent back to our room. That's about all for this Peach section, though. Now, to get to Dry Desert and start Chapter 2, you'll want to take the train south of Toad Town. This train will take you to Mount Rugged. There, you'll meet Parakarry, who is looking for 3 letters. Find the letters throughout the mountain and bring them to him. It can be a bit tricky finding them, and the enemies here are a bit annoying, specifically the spiky dudes. You gotta use your best moves to damage them, and they're everywhere. If you don't have a lot of FP, this could be difficult. Once you bring Parakarry his letters, he will join your party. His ability allows him to carry you over gaps by flying, which is another really useful ability. You can use this to fly over gaps at the end of Rugged Mountain. Past this is the worst place in the game for me, Dry Desert. It's essentially one big maze. Now, if you keep going east, you'll reach the outpost, but you gotta watch out for the tornadoes, which will blow you to a random spot. I had this happen once and it was super frustrating. I got lost for a good while. But once you make it to the outpost, you'll want to find information about the ruins. Talking to the little mouse guy will give you information in exchange for items, but if you want the good stuff, you gotta give him a lemon from the oasis down south. Do this and he'll tell you about Mr. Moustafa. Go see him to acquire the Pulse Stone, which will help you find the Dry ruins. And come to find out, Mr. Mustafa was the guy you gave the lemon to. After a bit of searching, you'll find the ruins with the Pulse Stone. It's honestly not too bad. Ruins are actually a pretty good time. I think I slightly prefer them over Koopa Bros Fortress. There are more new enemies which are pretty fun to fight, and some good puzzles like draining the sand and moving staircases. The best part about this place is you get a better hammer which lets Mario do more damage. It's really helpful in battle. Now your main goal here is to find 3 stones and place them in little indents in the wall to make a new path to the boss. This time the boss is Titan Koopa, I believe I'm saying that right, who has been threatening you since you entered the ruins, telling you to leave. But we're Mario, so we don't listen to him. This boss is actually a pretty challenging boss, especially if you're underleveled. I think I beat him with like 3 HP left, which is essentially one shot. His chain chomps can be very annoying as well. But after you beat him, you claim your second Star Spirit and learn the new power lullaby. And this completes chapter 2 and puts you in another Peach section. This time it's some more stealth section. Peach sneaks around trying to learn about the next star location. According to some nearby guys, it's with Tubba Blubba, who is apparently invincible. So chapter 3 has us going to the Forever Forest to find Tubba Blubba. To start this chapter, you'll have to go to Toad Town. There, you'll run into a Toad who's freaking out over seeing a ghost. This ghost will invite us to Boo's Mansion and tell us his boss wants to see us. To get to Boo's Mansion, you'll have to travel through Forever Forest, which is actually a pretty cool location. It's kind of like Lost Woods from Zelda, where you have to find the right path. You'll know which path you'll want to take by hints hidden near the exits. Some of these hints may include a tree with glowing eyes or laughing flowers, and these do get more tricky the further in you get. But eventually you'll arrive at Boo's Manor, and is it just me, or do the doors here look like chocolate bars? This area is a pretty cool area that has you solving puzzles to find your way to Lady Bo, the boss of Boo's Manor. There's also a cool little Easter egg here that lets you turn into 8-bit Mario and it plays the old song. I thought that was pretty cool. And another cool thing about this area is this is where you get the boots upgrade, which allows you to learn the spin jump. Now you can bust through the wood spots on the floor, as well as get an increase to your jump attack, which makes these boots super helpful for later fights. But you'll want to continue through Boo's Mansion until finding the Boo painting. Take this back to the empty frame on the 2nd floor, and the Boo will take you to the 3rd floor where you meet Bo. Bo will tell you she needs help defeating Tubba Blubba because his favorite snack is booze and he's been eating all their friends. So she teams up with you to go take down Tubba Blubba. Her ability is pretty cool, allowing you to become invisible, but I don't really like using her in battle so much. But overall, I thought Boo's Mansion was a pretty fun time to get through. Now it's time to take down Tubba Blubba. This next section leading up to Tubba Blubba is pretty cool, it being kind of deserty and barren, but the enemies here can be brutal. They can go Super Saiyan and do an insane amount of damage. Not only are the enemies hard, once you get to Tubba's castle, there are enemies that will grab you and throw you out, which can be a bit annoying, especially if you're pretty far in the castle. Now the green guys here aren't too bad to fight, but they can appear in groups of 4, which can be overwhelming, and I find it pretty hard to block their attacks, which is pretty common in this game. I feel like in the 1000-Year Door it was way easier to block attacks, but in this game you have to time it perfectly. Now your goal in Tubba's castle is to find the secret to defeating him. You'll find the key to the nearby windmill in his room, but the key is alive somehow, and he wakes up Tubba, who chases you out of the castle. Lucky for us, a group of Boos come to stop him, giving us time to get to the windmill. Inside the windmill is the secret to defeating Tubba, which is his heart. This throws us into a fight against it, which is pretty easy, and right before we beat his heart, he flees the windmill, returning to Tubba. But at this point, Tubba is weak and out of energy, and defeated pretty easy. With him now defeated, the Boos return the Star Spirit to us, completing Chapter 3. With this Star Spirit, we learn the Starstorm ability, which is the first really good star ability. It allows us to attack all the enemies, which is nice. Afterwards, we get another Peach section, which is similar to the previous one, but shorter. This time, we learn we need to head to Shy Guy's toy box. Now, on our way back to Toad Town, we do run into Junior Troopa again, and this time he's grown wings, and he's a lot tougher. Once we beat him though, we can finally make our way back to Toad Town, where Shy Guys are running amok. We even see one steal a frying pan from a lady. We then head to the abandoned house and go invisible and wait for the Shy Guy to come in. He thinks he's alone, revealing us the path to the toy box and starting Chapter 4. The first part of this chapter has you finding stolen items to return to the Toads in Toad Town to help us proceed, such as the storage key, which gets us the train we can ride through the toy box. Then there's the spatula we saw be taken at the start of the chapter, which lets us bake the cake to move the gourmet Shy Guy out of our way. And finally, a dictionary to learn the order in which to hit the 4 color blocks. Now, I actually guessed this by accident, so I didn't have to return to him, which is nice because a lot of this chapter involves backtracking. Now, I remember playing this level as a kid and really liking it, but going back to it, I think it's the weakest level so far. It's definitely not bad, it just isn't as good as the previous levels. I do still really enjoy the level design here and all the toys around. It really worked for a game where everything's made of paper. After returning all the items, you'll eventually come across the boss, Big Lantern. This is a pretty fun fight where you have to hit his lantern and brighten the arena so you can actually hurt him. But the amount of times I hit his lantern by mistake and wasted FP was too many to count. But after you defeat him, you get your newest partner, Watt, and probably my favorite partner in the game. I mean, look at him, he's adorable. He's even got a little pacifier. His ability also allows you to illuminate dark areas, which can be very useful. As far as battles go, he's okay, but I still prefer Parakarry or Bombette. Not long after this, we get our next and final boss fight of the chapter, Shy General and the Shy Squad. This boss fight is very underwhelming compared to the previous Big Lantern boss. It's pretty much just a Shy Guy in a tank, and he sends out his Shy Guy minions to fight with him. Once he's defeated, we get our 4th Star Spirit, who teaches us the Chill Out ability, which is another good ability. But overall, it's a really short chapter. And afterwards, we get another Princess Peach section. This time, it's kind of interesting. We get to bake a cake for Gourmet Man. I don't know how he got to Bowser's castle so fast, but he gives us the key to the kitchen to bake a cake, and let me just say, my cake turned out incredible. And luckily, Gourmet Guy agrees, so much so that he tells us where the next Star Spirit is. According to him, it's at Lava Lava Land. To start this chapter, we have to go to the port where we'll find a blue whale. It's complaining about a stomachache, so you'll use watt as your light and enter the whale Jabu Jabu style. Once inside, you'll find a Fuzzy Pede who was swallowed by the whale. You fight him in a quick battle and he leaves the whale. As thanks, the whale agrees to take you to Lava Lava Land, but you don't go alone. Colorado comes along, who is the Koopa archaeologist, or at least I think he is. Once you arrive at Lava Lava Land, you are greeted by a very tropical area. I love areas like this. It's actually a similar setting to Chapter 5 in the Thousand Year Door as well, which is my favorite chapter in that game. Nearby, you'll find a Yoshi village full of a variety of color of Yoshis. You'll also find the volcano as well. After seeing you can't reach the volcano, you'll return to Yoshi's village where all the Yoshi children have went off in the jungle. The parents aren't doing much to help, they're just freaking out, so it's up to Mario to save the day. While on your search for the Yoshi children, you meet Sushi, who is your next party member. He's not bad, plus his ability is pretty cool, allowing you to swim around. On your search for the kid Yoshis, you'll find a lot of different enemies, from Piranha Plants to Shy Guys. And I want to point out how amazing these backdrops look while in battle. This was the first time I really noticed it, but they are so cool looking here with the jungle and water in the background. It's a nice touch. But after saving all the Yoshi kids, return to the village and talk to the Yoshi leader. As a way of thanking you, he gives you the Jade Raven to use on Raphael's statue. This is a statue you probably noticed while searching for the Yoshi kids. Put the Jade Raven in the Raphael statue and open your path to Raphael the Raven. This is another one of my favorite locations where you climb up his big tree. It's so cool looking. This chapter just has some of the best environments. But at the top of the tree is Raphael, who will build you a path to the volcano as well as give you an Ultra Stone, which upgrades the party members even further. The inside of the volcano is actually pretty cool too. There's some platforming here, which is pretty cool, but you've also got some tough enemies like the fireballs and the piranha plants that poison you. Not only that, the inside of the volcano has some puzzles as well. So overall, a pretty good level. Then we get to the boss, and I was excited to fight this boss because it was so cool looking. But unfortunately, if you play this game on Nintendo Switch Online, which I did, this fight plays at like 10 FPS. Now it's not unplayable, but it is very close. So I looked it up, and apparently it's just an NSO problem, so if you're playing on the original N64, it shouldn't be a problem for you. It just sucks because this boss was the coolest one so far, but it was hard to play. Heck, I couldn't even do my double jump because the timing of pressing A was off. But after getting through that boss, we get our 5th Star Spirit with only 2 remaining. This spirit gives us the ability Smooch, which restores our HP, another really good ability. But now that we've collected our Star Spirit, we gotta save the volcano quickly because it's about to blow. That's pretty much the end of Chapter 5 too. I'd have to say it's probably my favorite chapter so far, and now we got another Peach section. This time Peach gets put in a quiz game against a few Koopas, and the questions help us find out where Mario needs to go next. The Flower Fields. On your way back to Toad Town, you run into Junior Koopa again. We kind of ignore him though and get on our whale. He then chases after us by swimming the ocean back to Toadport. The funny thing is that he has wings and could have flied the whole time. But swimming all the way back causes him to lose half his HP, leaving him with only 20. This makes him super easy, and the only difference this time is that he has a spike on his head. But if you use the badge that doesn't make spikes affect you, you're all good. Once he is defeated, we make our way to Flower Fields to start Chapter 6. But to get to Flower Fields, you have to place 4 seeds in the little garden in Toad Town. You get them from bulbs you've probably seen sticking out of the ground. Once all 4 are planted, a door will appear in the middle that leads to the Flower Fields. Once you arrive, Wise Wisterwood, who is the giant tree, tells you that Huff and Puff has invaded their land, darkening the skies with their clouds, so it's up to us to stop him. The Flower Fields is such a nice place full of charm, and I think aesthetically it's one of my favorite locations in the game. Even the enemy design here are some of my favorites. I really like the bee guys, although they're very easy for some reason. Now the first place you'll want to head is over to Petunia in the East Flower Fields. You help her fight off some moles and she'll give you a seed. Before leaving here though, you also want to grab some red berries from a tree which you need to bring to one of the flowers guarding a path. Once given to him, he'll move out of your way. This is a reoccurring thing throughout this level, so you want to make sure you check all the trees to get all the different types of berries because you'll end up needing them. Now to plant the seed, you'll want some fertile soil and the miracle water, but there's a problem. The water stone where the water comes from has been stolen by Lakitus. So we have to go to the hedge maze to get it back, but they've lost it. We get into a fight with them and make our way through the maze to where Rosie the Rose is. Luckily she found the water stone but won't give it back. We even tell her it's important and without it her fellow flowers will wither. She pretty much just says tough luck and will only give it to us if we bring her something even more pretty. So we backtrack to the crystal tree we saw earlier and grab a crystal berry to trade with her and finally get the water stone back. With the water stone back, we can finally restore the flow of water, giving us the bubble berry. We can give this as a flower blowing bubbles to get us across the spikes. Eventually we'll meet up with the sun, who has become pretty depressed now that the clouds are covering the area. He tells us about the Huff and Puff cloud machine, so now we can make our way over there. But on our way there, we get stopped by Lackluster the Lakitu. We have to fight him, and overall he's a pretty easy fight and also quite fun. Once beaten, he decides to join our party. Also, his girlfriend tries to stop him, or at least I think she's his girlfriend. She's actually pretty funny. We kinda just ignore her, and now we can finally go take out the cloud machine. But with Lackluster in our party, we can head to the sewers and get the Ultra Boots. You know, if you want to do more damage, which I would highly recommend. With him, we are able to use his ability to fly over some spikes, so getting the boots were impossible until now. But on your way there, you'll run into a pretty brutal boss fight against a big blooper. If you came to the sewers previously, you would have probably already fought a blooper boss, but this one is way tougher. I got super lucky and beat him while being one hit away. But after you beat him, it's pretty much a straight shot to the boots. With the boots now acquired, you can return to the cloud machine and destroy it. Once you destroy the cloud machine, the sun will shine again and everyone will be happy. Plus, you can now plant your seed. Once planted, it turns out to be a big beanstalk and you can climb up into the clouds. Here you'll face Huff and Puff, and let me just say, this boss is no joke. It's definitely the most difficult boss in the game up to this point, and I barely beat him even with my new shoes. He's got a super strong storm attack, as well as every time you hit him, he has baby clouds, which is occasionally sucked up to restore health. The boss design itself is pretty lackluster as well. He's just a big cloud, but that doesn't mean he can't beat you up. After defeating Huff and Puff, we get our 6th Star Spirit Clevar. He teaches us the ability Timeout, which stops the enemies. It's a decent move, but it's not as good as some of our previous ones. But with Chapter 6 finished, we get another Peach section. This time, we can use our umbrella to turn into nearby enemies and sneak around. This is one of my favorite Peach sections, because we get to see the outside of the castle a bit. But as per usual, it ends with her getting caught. In Chapter 7, we need to go to Shiveria Town. To get there, we need to journey through the sewers where we found the boots. Once you arrive, you'll want to see the mayor, but when we get there, we find out the mayor has been murdered? His wife walks in and finds us next to his body and accuses us of the murder. She tells the detective pig when we barged in even though she told us not to. Yeah, I don't like this lady. We tell the detective multiple times we didn't murder the mayor, and luckily he believes us. In the mayor's dead hand, Mario finds a letter that says Herringway, which is our first clue to this murder mystery. We want to go around asking the civilians if they know anything, and while doing so, you can take in how incredible this location looks. It's a snowy town that kind of gives a Christmas vibe. But eventually you'll find Herringway's house. Unfortunately, he isn't there. But next door to him is a locked storage room. The key can be found nearby in the frozen pond. You can use your tornado jump to break the ice and then swim under the water with Sushi to grab the key. The water's gotta be cold though. With the key in hand, we can make our way inside the storeroom, and upstairs we'll find a jump pad that gets us to the roof. From there, we can get to Herringway's roof and jump down his chimney to find his secret room. He tells us he didn't murder the mayor, but I'm not buying it. I mean, this guy has a secret room. Okay, I guess he didn't murder the mayor. When we return, the mayor wakes up and tells us he slipped and hit his head. Come on, seriously? But with the mystery solved, we now get access to Starborn Valley. But as soon as we leave town, we run into good old Junior Koopa again. This time, he has mastered the power of magic. But seriously, his magic attacks are no joke. They do 7 damage if you don't dodge. But if you're leveled up, it shouldn't be too much of a problem beating him. Afterwards, we continue on and make our way to Starborn Valley. But at the entrance, we are stopped yet again by a big monster guy. He turns out to be pretty easy, and also he's made up of a bunch of twinks. But now we can finally enter Starborn Valley and meet Merle. Merle tells us the next Star Spirit is on top of Shiver Mountain and gives us a scarf, which is important to getting to Shiver Mountain, and he then tells you the mayor has the other thing you need to get to Shiver Mountain. So we go back to the mayor and he gives us a bucket. And again, I want to point out how good looking Starborn Valley is. It's another really cool looking area. I'd say of every chapter, this one has the best locations as well as atmosphere. But with both the scarf and bucket in hand, we take them to the group of snowmen. One is missing a scarf and another is missing a hat, aka the bucket. Give them what they need and the path to Shiver Mountain will open. This area is pretty straightforward, but not far in, you'll use Cooper to hit a switch and notice he has multiplied. They begin arguing who the real Cooper is, but lucky for me, I knew who it was and totally didn't guess. Turns out it wasn't a copy of Cooper, just a duplicate, which we take out pretty easily. Now we can keep going through the area until we reach a dead end. Next to the dead end is a star-shaped indent in the wall. If we go down next to the previous path, there's a hard-to-see area, and inside is a star where we can insert into the stone, making a staircase to the Crystal Palace. Now on my way up, I got into a fight with an enemy and I was using Bombette's explosion attack, and right as she was about to explode, my switch exploded. Seriously though, my game crashed and I lost about an hour of progress. I'm assuming probably another NSO issue, but man was it annoying. But eventually I was able to make my way to the Crystal Palace, and this place may seem straightforward at first, but it's actually very tricky. I was stuck here for a little bit, especially trying to find the red key as well as the statue puzzle at the end. I will say again, this area is super cool looking. Chapter 7 has gotta have my favorite areas so far. Now as far as the boss, the Crystal King, he was super cool looking but was also very frustrating. Most of his attacks aren't bad, it's more so he can freeze you for 2 turns as well as heal 20 HP. And the healing was definitely the worst part because you can kind of avoid being frozen, but 20 HP is a lot in this game. Another thing that was kind of annoying is he will split up into 3 and you have to figure out which one's the real one. Now this ain't bad if you use an attack that hits everyone, but near the end I ran out of FP. So you definitely want to make sure you don't overuse your abilities. I will say this boss was probably my least favorite so far and the only boss I'd never want to fight again. But if we look at this chapter as a whole, it's a pretty good one, you know, minus the boss. It had great areas, fun enemies, and sometimes good puzzles that were actually challenging. But with it over, we can finally collect our final Star Spirit and make our way up to Bowser. This Star Spirit teaches us Up and Away, which is pretty underwhelming for a final ability. It turns all the enemies into stars and blows them away, and the worst part is we don't even get star points. So I can only see this being useful if they're in a spot where you're about to die. Now with chapter 7 over, we go back to Peach. During this scene, Bowser comes in to talk to Peach and Kammy Koopa comes in and tells him that Mario has all the Star Spirits. Bowser gets upset, ties Peach up, and brings her to watch as they set up an ambush for Mario. Now with all 7 Star Spirits, Mario can return to Shooting Star Summit. Here, the stars create a path to Bowser's castle, and it kind of reminds me of how the sages made a path to Ganon's castle in Ocarina of Time. It's pretty cool. We climb the star path while fighting fire enemies, and this part also kind of gives me Rainbow Road vibes from Mario Kart. I wonder if this is where they got that inspiration from. But eventually we'll reach Bowser's castle. Bowser's castle is a long area. I thought the first half it was really cool because you got parts where you need to use each of your party members. And there's some fun battles, but by the halfway point I was just ready to get through it. Especially the room where you gotta fight the gold bullet bills, it just went on for too long. Throughout the castle though, you'll run into a bunch of Bowser stone faces in the wall. The first one will drop you in a prison cell while another will have you doing trivia. But after finally making it through Bowser's castle, you'll be stopped by Junior Koopa for the final time. This time he's the strongest he's ever been and will swap between each of his forms. This is a pretty fun fight, but I wish we would have got more from him. When you beat him, he just does what he always does and runs off. But after he is defeated, we finally get to go to Peach's castle. It's empty here, so there are no enemies you have to worry about, plus in a nearby room you can rest up and heal. Once we make it back to the room with the window that Bowser broke from the beginning of the game, we'll see Peach tied up, and finally fight against Bowser. When he uses his Star Rod, we can use the Star Beam that we acquired from all 7 Star Spirits to turn him back to normal and do some damage. He's pretty easy here, but this is just a warm-up. After we smack him around a bit, he takes Peach to the top of the castle and we have to follow him up there. Once we arrive, we fight Bowser yet again in his super form, where even our Star Beam won't affect him. This is where Twink comes in to save the day. He's finally useful. He frees Princess Peach and fights Kammy Koopa. At first he isn't strong enough to do damage to Kammy Koopa, but the harder Peach wishes, the stronger he becomes, eventually defeating Kammy Koopa. Now with the power of all the stars and Princess Peach praying, we can beat up Bowser. I had to do this fight twice. The first time I got absolutely destroyed, but then the second time I beat him super easily, even though I barely did anything different. I even feel like I did less damage than the first time. Also apparently he can heal, but I never had that happen either. I feel like I got super lucky, which made this fight pretty enjoyable for me. But once Bowser is defeated, we get our Star Rod back and save the day. I'd say this game is definitely worth playing, and while it may have its slow spots, it definitely has some really great spots to balance it out and makes for an overall very enjoyable experience. Now, do I prefer this or the Thousand Year Door? Honestly, at first I would have said this one, but I think I'd have to go with the Thousand Year Door just because I feel like the battles are a bit better. The battle system just feels more fleshed out in that game. But I will say I think the thing this game does better is its level design. So each of the games both have their strengths and weaknesses. Overall, Paper Mario 64 is still a really good game and definitely one worth playing. But maybe not on NSO. That Chapter 5 boss was rough. But I don't think there's much more I can say about Paper Mario 64. I'd say this was a great game to start my journey in playing every North American N64 game. And if you want to follow along in this journey, consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed, drop a like as well. And let me know in the comments what 64 game I should play next. This was definitely the hardest video I've made so far, so I really hope it turned out well. But I think that'll do it for this video. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.